Hello everybody, welcome to Alan Wall's Photography. I am Alan and we are in my car. Because we're going bug hunting, what we're going to do in this video is two things. I'm going to really quickly show you how to catch tiny insects because I'm at a place that I like to come to find them. It's a grassy area. Well, I'll show it to you in a second. It's behind a mini hospital that doesn't have any patients or doctors in it. It's behind me. I have no idea what the deal is. It's been empty ever since they built it. So I'll show you how I catch them. And the point of this video is so that I can show you how I deal with tiny fresh insects that haven't been in alcohol. They're straight out of the field, so that's when their colors are best, and that's what this video is about. All right, let's go hunting. Okay, so here's the gear. I have one of my jars. It's looking a little dry. This glass tube is filled with ethyl acetate. Doesn't have a lot in it, and then it's just an empty Tupperware thing made by Ziploc. And here is my beat up mosquito net. It's now quite full of holes. This happens after a while, and when you're looking for really small insects like I am, they'll get out through these holes. So I've got a clean collection bottle which has tape wrapped around the top so that it doesn't slide out the bottom. And all I'm going to do is go sweep this through the grass a few times. I'm not going to stop and try to collect individual bugs. What I'll do is I'll sweep the areas that I know are usually good until I've got a bunch of stuff in the collection tube, and then I'll put the whole collection tube in the ethyl acetate jar. And you know what? I think I'm going to leave that in the car so I don't have to drag it around. I'm only going to be here a few minutes. But this is where we are. And this is the place that I like to come. Oh, look at that plover. Beautiful bird. Red eyes. Doesn't seem bothered by me, does he? Oh, he's got a broken leg. Oh, jeez. Is it a broken leg, or does he just fancy me? What is going on with his wings and everything? I hope you can see this. I've got the camera and a tripod, so yeah, I don't think he's very good at flying, is he? Well, I'd normally pick him up and try to help him, but I really don't know what I'd do. Oh dear. I wonder if he's been attacked. Oh, no, there he goes. Anyhow, let's get on with this. Got several of these little flies. They're like fruit flies, but I've been photographing them already today. There doesn't appear to be anything else interesting in here. No, there are actually. Oh, there's a leaf hopper. So I'll probably keep this lot, and then I'm going to go sweep another area and keep going until this thing's just full of life. My plover is still here doing this funny carry on the ground. This is always productive, this grassy area. It's always a good idea to try different kinds of vegetation, because different insects will live on different kinds of plants. Now, we've got quite a lot of interesting stuff in here now. A couple of pro tips here is avoid sweeping your net if there are any brambles or anything with thorns. That's where all the holes in your net are going to come from. So don't do that, and keep moving with it. You don't want it to stop moving. You want to make these big figure of eights. Oh, I see something that I've been looking for. In this goldenrod, there are several beasties in there. Let's give that a try. Have some real beauties in here. A lot of interesting things crawling around. I think we'll leave it there for right now. I wanted to go down where those white plants are, but I think for now we'll call it a day. And let's go back to the house, and I'll show you how to prep these things for immediate photography. So pretty out here. Here's that plover still going bananas. If anybody knows what that odd behavior is about, please tell me. I'm going to just hit this one patch. So when I've done several sweeps, I leave the vegetation in there. I think it helps the insects feel like they're hiding. And then I'll put the whole tube in there with the net. Like so. Put the lid on. There you go. And by the time we get back, these will all be ready, and we'll just have to clean them, sort them, mount them, and photograph them. Look what showed up right as I was getting ready to get in the car. He landed on me. This is a May bug, or is it an April bug? It's just a beetle, a golden beetle. Normally I would I would pick him up to photograph him, but they're really quite boring to photograph, and the tiny insects that we just got are going to be a lot more interesting, and there's more to learn from getting them ready as well. See this poor bird? Well, I feel bad about that bird. As the spring turns into summer, and we get more goldenrod. If you're not familiar with it, it's a yellow flower. That's a weed, I suppose, that grows everywhere around here, and it's the home for some of the most fascinating assassin bugs. So I like to go out and find. We may have an assassin bug in that catch I just made. They're ugly, ugly things that look like mutant lobsters from outer space, but they're only a few millimeters long. So if we got lucky and there's any of them in there, we'll photograph them. Anyhow, that's all there is to it. And this is what I do when I'm wanting to photograph interesting insects that I may not see every day. I'll come down here for 10 minutes and I'll just go through the grass, sweeping up what I can find, and then sort through it when I get back, and see what's in there. And it's great fun. And thank goodness there's a lot of places around here that you can do it. And it's like deep sea fishing, except that it's not underwater. But it's like these deep sea fishing in that you never really know what you're going to find. And I am forever finding things that I have to look up in a book because I've never seen them before. I was going to keep it secret, but I've got to go buy my storage locker to get my sewing equipment, my sewing machine, because my net's about on its last legs. So I'm going to make a fresh one, and I thought maybe I'd show you how to do it if you decide to do silly things like go out and collect insects when you could be doing something constructive like watching your video upload to YouTube. Well, here we are, back in my laboratory. I had to make a couple of brief stops on the way home. That's why it's now dark. What I want to show you is how I sort my bugs, decide what I'm going to photograph fresh and what I'm going to put in containers for later. I like to think of these bugs as being like fresh seafood, like nice big Dungeness crabs. When you get them, you should probably eat them right away because that's when they're at their best. But if you want to put them in a big jar of isopropyl alcohol for, say, 4 years and then eat them, I suppose you could. I wouldn't, but you could. So yes, it's better when they're fresh. So you saw me collect these bugs, and this was it. 4 or 5 sweeps of those that grassy area. And at first, when you look at it, let me. Sorry about this contraption in the way, but I really want you to see as much of this detail as possible because that's kind of what this is about. But when you look in the tub, it looks like a lot of seeds and bits of grass and leaves, and that's it. But there are probably 50 photogenic insects in here. So the equipment we have is a little receptacle of super glue. I strongly recommend you get one with a screw cap, not one of the tubes. The tubes leak and they get on everything. And I can tell you, it is an absolute disaster if they get on a lens or on a camera. You want to keep this stuff, even the fumes from this stuff, away from your optical stuff. So a good screw cap is the safest way to go. We don't use much of this. You'll see. I usually will have a small dish of warm water with a fraction of a drop of detergent in it. I try not to wet these insects, but when I look at them closely, if they have dust or dirt on them, I have to rinse them. But the whole point is we're going to try to do these in their freshest state, so they're not going in alcohol unless I don't shoot them tonight. Photograph them, that is. So the first thing I do is tip them out onto a piece of tracing paper, and it has to be tracing paper. The thing about tracing paper is it's incredibly absorbent, but it doesn't shed fibers at all. And most of my drying is done using this piece of paper, as you'll see. So I empty the debris out. Try to avoid what I just did and squash an insect when I'm knocking the thing. Now, as I look around in here, I can already see that I have a leaf hopper stuck to this piece of, this iPhone's going to work well for this. That is a leaf hopper that's stuck to a twig that I was otherwise going to end up throwing away. So I'll go through the little bucket and check all the walls. There is nothing else in there, I am confident. So I will put that off to this. Well, actually, I normally have a rubbish container, but I'll use this as a rubbish container. So what I do now is start with the big pieces, give them a careful look, make sure there's nothing on them or in them. Now remember, this container was sealed with an open bottle of ethyl acetate in there. So these insects are kind of ex-insects now. I don't know what this fuzzy thing is. You come across all kinds of fascinating seed pods, and I'm not much into plants though, so I generally just toss them. It looks like a tadpole, but it's a sprouted seed. It would be very unusual to harvest any tadpoles from the grass. They prefer a damper habitat. This thing has got bugs clinging all to it. So now, as a spectator sport, this might not be everybody's cup of tea or anybody's cup of tea, but I'm going to assume that there are at least one or two people who are as bonkers about this as I am, who want to know how you do this, so I'm going to keep going. There are a couple of ants. It's hard to see, but they're right in there. Yeah, that got one of them out. And there's the other. See, these are really sub-millimeter creatures. And that's good because we're going to be shooting them with microscope objectives, and we can make these things look as big as my head, which is saying something. And I won't put you through all of this, but I go through every scrap until I'm down to insects only. This is an insect, a bug that has been caught in a spider web, and generally I reject those. Once a spider is webbed on them, it looks terrible under magnification. And look at that interesting seed thing. It looks like a comma. Anyway, once the cobwebs are on them and you photograph them under magnification, the cobwebs they make these terrible specular highlights that get in the way of what you're photographing. So generally speaking, if I can see cobweb strands with my own eyes, I'm not even going to bother pinning them. I said there might be 50 insects in here. I think it's probably going to be 100 at least. Some of them look absolutely massive. Now, as I come across a bug, I put it on a separate piece of paper off to the side, where I'll keep them all organized. I'm not going to make you sit through this. I'm just going to keep doing this, and I'll turn it back on if I find something that you've just got to see. How does that sound? Okay, so I eventually gave up. I have by no means got all of the bugs out of this mix. There are lots and lots of tiny, tiny flies this size. Now, I meant to go and get a grain of rice, but let me show you something that is a grain of rice size. No, that's too small. That's half the size of a grain of rice, and these flies, you could fit 5 of them on there. So I pretty much, I give up when I can't even breathe through my nose without blowing the flies off the paper. That's when I know they're too small. But let me show you what I got. I'm going to put the rest of that aside. There's nothing else of use in there. But this is what I got out of that little mess. Let me show you a few of the more interesting things. This is a tiny little snail that I just mushed. These are called love bugs down here. I don't know why. They're very unlovely to look at, and they largely infest this area in the summer when they get going. I caught 2 of them apparently in flagrante delicto with my net, because they are in the act of making more love bugs. So I feel like I did a good thing today. I don't know if this is the same species. I don't photograph these. They don't photograph very well because they're black on black. They're kind of goth bugs. Yeah. And they've got this red bump on the back, which you'd think would be interesting, but it's not. So there were bunches of those. When you find these, you usually find a lot. Then there were quite a lot of aphids. I am pretty sure that this is an aphid. It's hard as heck to see. I'd need to get him under a microscope. By the way, I broke down and ordered a dissecting microscope yesterday because I can't stand being without one. This one I might photograph just to see what it is. Several cute beetles. These yellow and black ones are real common around here. I photographed one of them earlier today. It looks just like a little orange ladybird. Yeah, it is, just a tiny little one. Let me see, there was some super interesting stuff. This was a find. This guy with the big long arms is a spider, and he's got a beautiful marking on his abdomen, green and brown stripes. I'm also a little concerned that he's still alive. These are fascinating, very photogenic because the colors in them are beautiful. They've got an orange abdomen and a beautiful head with these knobby little antennas, yellow on top. These photograph well, but I got quite a lot of them today from that haul. Well, 3. There's 1, 2, 3. They're all the same. This guy's something different. He has beautiful, beautiful eyes and a strange configuration of antennas. They're short, stubby antennas. I got a caterpillar thing. I have no idea what it is. This guy I'm going to have to photograph to see what he is. All right, what else? These are all aphids, and you can photograph any of these. I don't know what it is. It's something in the true bug family, like related to squash bugs, though it's not a squash bug. I'll probably photograph that one too. Let me see what else. Tiny little round beetles that are very nondescript and they look like a grain of dirt. But let's get to the stuff I'm most excited about. We'll just ignore these aphids, and it's these things. I think that they are leaf hoppers, very bright leaf hoppers. These two definitely need to be photographed so I can figure out what they are. But what I was most excited about is that after all of that, oh, look at the color of the wings on this little fly. I don't know if you can see the light reflecting on them. They're beautiful. That'll photograph really nicely with flash. But anyway, the last thing I wanted to show you was a nice big leaf hopper. This is what I was looking for yesterday when the chiggers went up my trouser legs and started to drive me away. This is, I think, what I'll photograph this evening. There. Because he doesn't look like much, but wait till you see the colors of this thing under good light. Very happy I found him. So that's why this to me is as much fun as just about anything else you can do, because in 5 minutes with a homemade net, I have 20 different species of bugs that I can photograph with the regular old setup that we use. In fact, today, because I was trying to photograph some small insects, but I wanted them in their entirety, I wanted all of their limbs and wings, I switched to using a very long extension and a reversed 50mm prime lens on the end. It's a very, very sharp lens, and it gives an absolutely incredible image. So I think what I might do is, if I tried to use the 4x Amscope objective or anything higher than that on this leaf hopper, I'd only be able to get one half of his body, probably just his head, in shot. But with this lens, I can get this whole guy. So let me do that. But let me show you first what I do to get him ready. I'll just walk you through one example. Before I try to spread his appendages, which I will do, I need to fix him. I need to stop him from moving, and I need a handle to wash him with. So that's where I reach for one of my black enamel insect pins and the super glue. I have this 55-gallon drum of super glue here. Not really. It's a tiny little bottle. This phone does a great job at macro stuff. Now, generally speaking, what I'll do is I will put a drop of glue, and it'll be all I'll use the whole time. There. That's all I'll use to get all of those insects organized. Can you even see that? I'm sorry. There it is. It'll sit on the tracing paper and it'll gradually soak in and gradually dry, but not that quickly. So what I'll do is I'll just drag my pin through the super glue, and then I'll tap it on the paper till there's none visible, so that there's actually none visible on the pin. And then what I'll do is I will rest the pin on the ventral side of the abdomen, or the underside of the abdomen. It'll usually stick pretty much instantly. And I just hold it in position like that. You'll notice I'm not sticking it in. I don't like to pin insects. That's all you have to do. You just hold it on his belly, or whatever part you're going to glue. And when it sets, this isn't going anywhere. We could dunk this guy in the water to wash him if we wanted, and he'd stay on the pin. So what I do is when I have him pinned, this is him now pinned, I will use little puffs of air. See how just by doing that, we're not drying him, he's not wet, but just by doing this, his legs and wings start to spread out. You can do the same to get their antennas up. I hope you can see that, but the legs were all collapsed underneath him, and now they're all starting to spread out. See how I'm using my this finger? What's that finger called? Middle finger. Just as a backdrop, so that I'm not pushing him too hard on the pin. Fantastic. And this will also blow any dirt off. I've turned his head around a little bit, which I didn't want to do. Now it's back straight. And that's what I'll do. Now, this guy doesn't need it, and if you don't need to wet it, don't wet it. The wetting, the washing, the drying, all of that is for any insect that's like from yesterday or is super dirty. And if it's ever been in preservative of any kind, then you have to go through the whole washing, ultrasound deal. But that's how I clean up a fresh bug. I pin him and then use puffs of air to get everything lined up the way I want it. And let's photograph this one. I'll set everything up and get the stack going, and then I'll show you what we come up with. The reason that only part of him would fit, and I couldn't get the whole fly, bee, whatever it is, in there, is because I have the bellows pretty much maxed out. So here's the bellows, and you can see, I hope you can see how extended I have it. But I wanted to show you this lens just because this is one of my favorite setups. This is an old lens that has, I just bumped my bee thing. It has a manual aperture ring. What did I have it set on? I had it set on 4, which is pretty close to the sweet spot for this thing. And the reason I use this, I wonder if I can take it off with one hand. There we go. This is all it is. It is a 52mm filter ring on one side, and then the other side is the female F mount. It's exactly the same as the camera's F mount. So this is like a camera body, so that it will fit on a reversed lens. This is a reversed 50, so this will fit on as if my left hand here is the camera. And what it does is it allows me to put a filter in here, like a 52 UV filter, which prevents the near end of the lens from being damaged, because it's pretty exposed, and you definitely don't want to scratch or knock that. I don't put a glass element in this thing. I just find that by having this cuff, it's like a lens hood. And that's basically all it is, really. So if you don't have a BR2 or BR6, neither, it's a BR3. If you don't have a BR3 and you're using reverse standard primes like this 50, you really ought to think about getting one of these. And you can get a much better view on the insect mount apparatus. It's so good, and you can really see here how the X-Acto knife holds the insect at exactly the angle that I want. Anyway, while that stack is finishing up, that's really all there is to it. That's the way I sort my insects and get them ready for shooting when they're fresh. I'll show you these pictures. I'm going to try to shoot a couple more of these this evening, and then I'll preserve them all in alcohol so that I can shoot them at a later date. And you already know how to clean the alcohol soaked ones. I am going to be doing a sewing video tomorrow. Seriously, my insect net is completely destroyed from a run-in with a bramble bush. It's got a bunch of holes in, like I showed you when we were out hunting today. So tomorrow I'm going to make a new one. So if you have any interest at all in catching bugs like this, you need to watch the next video, because I am so terrible at sewing. I'm good at hand sewing, the stuff I used to do for a living, but I'm not good with machine sewing. They wouldn't let us bring sewing machines into the operating room, so we had to do it all by hand, and I'm great with that. But anyway, that's coming up next. So wherever you are, stay safe, stay indoors. I'll see you again in a couple of days. Adios.